If you're a gamer, you know them well. Many white hoods, hidden blades, leaping from the tallest towers into haystacks. Assassin's Creed introduced the world to a shadowy order of killers. But what if I told you that their reality is far stranger, darker, and more complex than any video game? The true story of the Assassins isn't about parkour or action heroes. It's a story of a man who, without a massive army, brought the most powerful empire of his time to its knees. A man who sat in a fortress atop the clouds and using the psychology of fear and absolute loyalty changed the course of history. Today we travel to 11th century Persia, Iran, to the heart of the Alborz Mountains, where myth and reality blur. We're going to dive deep into the mind of the most mysterious figure in Eastern history.
Hassan Sabbah.
Known to the West as the Old Man of the Mountain. Was he history's first terrorist? Or was he a strategic genius fighting for freedom? Let's uncover the hidden story. Welcome to the Hidden East Stories. Before we get to the fortress of Alamut and the daggers, we must understand what turns an ordinary people into a cult leader. Psychology tells us that radicalization doesn't happen overnight. Hassan Sabbah was born in the city of Qom, in a Shia family, but he was no ordinary child. Historical texts describe him as having an unstable thirst for knowledge. As a young man, he was looking for answers that the mainstream religion of his time could not provide. Imagine a world dominated by the Seljuk Empire. The Turkish Seljuks ruled Persia with military might and strict religious orthodoxy. For someone like Hassan, intelligent, ambitious and fundamentally anti-establishment, the world felt like a cage. The turning point in his life came when he encountered the Ismailis, a group often called the Batiniya or esoterics. They believed that every religion text had an obvious outer meaning and a hidden inner truth. For Hassan's serious mind, this idea was like a spark in a powder keg. He left Persia and traveled to Egypt. Cairo, at the time, was the capital of the Fatimid Caliphate and the center of Ismaili knowledge. This wasn't just a geographical journey, it was a psychological one. There, Hassan didn't just learn theology. He learned organization, propaganda, and mass psychology. he learned how to build a network of followers who were invisible yet omnipresent. When he returned to Persia, he was no longer a seeker. He was a man with a mission. He realized he could not fight the massive Seljuk army in an open field. He would be crushed. He needed a new strategy, a strategy we call today asymmetric warfare. And to do that, he needed a base. A place so remote, so high that even eagles struggled to reach it. In the heart of the Alborz Mountains, there stood a fortress they said was built by eagles. Alamut. It wasn't just a stone structure, it was a military dead end. Perched atop the vertical cliff, Alamut had only one narrow, winding entrance. To any 11th century general, capturing this castle with an army was impossible. But Hassan Sabbah was no ordinary general. He didn't want to break the walls. He wanted to conquer the minds inside the walls. Hassan's strategy was gradual infiltration. For 2 years, he lived secretly in the villages surrounding Alamut. Disguised as a pious teacher and ascetic, he befriended the locals. He offered them not just a new faith, but hope and a sense of justice. Slowly, even the soldiers inside the fortress began to fall under his spell. The day came when the ruler of the castle, a man named Alawi Mahdi, appointed by the Seljuks, realized that this stranger's influence was greater than his own. But it was too late. The historic moment arrived. Hassan entered the fortress. When the governor protested, he calmly replied, "This castle no longer belongs to you." But instead of an execution, Hassan performed a stroke of genius. He handed the governor a draft for 3,000 gold dinars and said, "This is the price of your castle. Live in peace." This was his first major victory. Capturing an impregnable fortress without spilling a single drop of blood. Alamut became the hidden capital of the assassins, a place from which Hassan Sabbah began to rewrite the rules of global power. There's a legend that has been told in the West for centuries. A story first brought to Europe by Marco Polo. He spoke of a secret garden hidden behind the walls of Alamut, a paradise on earth, filled with streams of wine and honey, and the most beautiful maidens. It was said that Hassan Sabbah would drug young men using a substance later called Hashish, and transport them to this garden while unconscious. When they woke up, they believed they were in heaven. Then, Hassan would tell them, "If you wish to return here forever, you must complete my mission and sacrifice your life." But is any of it true? Modern historians and psychologists are skeptical. No archaeologist has ever found the remains of such a garden in the barren, rocky mountains of Alamut. The truth was likely far more terrifying than an artificial paradise. Hassan Sabbah's power didn't come from drugs, it came from brainwashing and ideological engineering. He gave his followers, known as Fidais, something empires could not offer: purpose. He elevated them to a level of faith where death was not an end, but a promotion. He used psychological techniques of social isolation and esoteric teaching to create soldiers who feared neither the blade nor torture. In today's world, we call this radicalization, but back then it was a new military psychology. Hassan Sabbah realized that one man who does not fear death is more dangerous than an army of 10,000. The year was 1092. The most powerful man in the Seljuk Empire, the Grand Vizier Nizam al-Mulk, was traveling with his caravan. He was the architect of Seljuk power and the arch-nemesis of Hassan Sabbah. He believed he was safe behind this wall of soldiers. Suddenly, a man dressed as a Sufi mystic approached him, seemingly to present a petition. But instead of paper, a dagger emerged from his sleeve. This was the first major political assassination by the order. Nizam al-Mulk died instantly. The message to the world was clear. No one, not even those guarded by thousands, is beyond our reach. Hassan Sabbah was a genius of psychological warfare. He didn't seek to defeat armies on the battlefield. He sought to paralyze the brain of the system. There's a legendary story that when Sultan Sanjar, the mighty Seljuk ruler, was preparing to march on Alamut, he woke up one morning to find a dagger stuck in the ground beside his bed. Next to it was a note. Had we not wished the Sultan well, this dagger would have been thrust into his soft heart instead of the hard earth. Terrified by the realization that his inner sanctum had been breached, the Sultan immediately sought for peace. Hassan's psychology was simple yet lethal. Omnipresence through invisibility. He trained his followers to infiltrate enemy courts for months, working as servants or guards, waiting silently for a single signal from Alamut. Most think of Alamut as a mere military barracks, but the truth will shock you. Hassan Sabbah was a bibliophile. Atop those impregnable cliffs, he built one of the greatest libraries of the Middle Ages. Scholars and astronomers from across the world sought refuge in Alamut. Even Nasir ad-Din Tusi, one of the greatest minds in human history, conducted his research within these walls. It's a strange paradox. How can one hand hold a dagger while the other holds a pen? Hassan knew that knowledge is power. Hassan's intelligence network was more sophisticated than the CIA of its time. They used a system of carrier pigeons and encrypted codes that no one could decipher. This level of strategic patience is unprecedented in military psychology. Alamut was not alone. Hassan managed a network of dozens of fortresses from Persia to Syria, using light signals and fires atop mountain peaks. They could send messages from Qazvin to Levant in a matter of hours. This stone internet allowed Hassan to govern a borderless empire. He was the first to invent the concept of a state without territory. To understand Hassan, we must look at his brutality toward himself. He did not leave Alamut for 35 years, spending his life in study and governance. But the most chilling part was his treatment of his own family. He executed both of his sons, one for drinking alcohol and the other for alleged involvement in a murder. He wanted to prove that the cause was more important than blood. No empire lasts forever. In 1256 AD, a force arrived at the borders of Alamut, unlike any enemy before. The Mongols. Hulagu Khan, the grandson of Chinggis, brought giant catapults and an army that shook the earth, besieging the Ismaili fortresses one by one. Rukn-ad-Din Khorshah, the last leader of Alamut, surrendered. The great Library of Alamut, a treasure trove of centuries of knowledge, was put to the torch. They say the smoke from the burning books blackened the skies of the Albers for days. The fortress that Hassan Sabbah built was reduced to rubble. But was this the end? Not at all. The Mongols crushed the stones, but they could not kill the idea. The name assassins crossed the borders of the East and infiltrated Western literature and culture. Today, from multi-million-dollar video games to modern theories of guerrilla warfare, their roots can be traced back to the tactics of the old man of the mountain. Hassan Sabbah showed us that power is not always in the number of soldiers. It's in controlling the narrative and occupying the mind. He was a man who shook the world from the shadows. Thank you for joining us on this long journey into the heart of history. If you enjoyed this hidden story, subscribe and let us know in the comments. Do you think Hassan Sabbah was a hero or a villain? I'm Hassan Ismaili, and this is Hidden East Story. Until the next story, keep seeking the truth.